It was November 2020 when chaos erupted in Boksburg, east of Johannesburg. A white Ford Ranger bakkie slammed into a BMW, and within moments, the air was shattered by over 30 gunshots. The deadly ambush claimed the life of Ernie Lastig, Solomon, South Africa's most infamous gang leader. If his death wasn't bad enough already, family members, including children, were also injured. This is the story of the biggest South African gang boss who met his end.
Well, on Friday, another alleged Cape gang leader was killed. His car was showered with bullets in Boksburg in Gauteng. Ernie Lastig, Solomon's daughter, her baby, and another person were wounded in that attack.
At around 8 a.m., South African police service was summoned after a brutal shooting occurred. Security officers Johan Brouwers and Vogan Kepke, who were having breakfast nearby, became unexpected first responders. Their attention was drawn to the squealing of tires, and they looked to see a white Ford Ranger bakkie crash into a white BMW before coming to a halt in front of it. The backie's driver, masked and wearing a black cap, emerged carrying a rifle and began shooting at the BMW. Within seconds, a silver Ford EcoSport arrived, and another gunman, armed with a handgun, joined in the attack. The first assailant abandoned the Ford Ranger and joined his accomplice in the EcoSport, speeding away from the scene. As chaos subsided momentarily, Brewers and Kepke quickly donned their bulletproof vests and approached the BMW, where the aftermath of the assault was devastating. Inside the front passenger seat was a man drenched in blood, clutching a 1-year-old child who had been struck by gunfire. When the officers opened the door, the man collapsed to the ground, pleading for help for the injured child. The child had suffered gunshot wounds to the stomach and arm, but was rushed to the hospital and ultimately survived. Tragically, the man, who had taken over 20 bullets while shielding the child, succumbed to his injuries shortly after arriving at the hospital. The BMW revealed further horrors. In the back seat was the child's mother, the daughter of Ernie Lastig, Solomon, a notorious Cape Town gang leader. She had been shot multiple times, including in both legs, but survived after being airlifted to the hospital. In the driver's seat, secured by a seatbelt, was the lifeless body of Ernie Lastig, Solomon. The 62-year-old had been shot over 30 times in the head, neck, and stomach, dying instantly. Ernie Lastig, Solomon's violent death marked another grim chapter in South Africa's deadly gang wars, where rivalries among groups like the 26, 27s, and 28s have claimed countless lives. These gangs, born in prison and entrenched in the culture of violence, perpetuate cycles of revenge killings and territorial disputes. The numbers associated with these gangs carry deep, dangerous significance, often leading to bloodshed as individuals vie for power or honor these symbolic affiliations. Graveyards across the country bear the weight of these conflicts, filled with young lives lost to the brutality of gang warfare. Survivors of this deadly environment learn to live in constant vigilance, withholding even the simplest details about their movements to avoid becoming targets. In the following interview, we will see and hear Ernie's perspective on the gangster life.
The gangs in South Africa is the 26, is the 27s, is the 28s. You understand? They control in the prisons. You know what these numbers? They go to prison, brothers from a same mother. They come out of prison, they kill each other.
But his death in November 2020 was not the first attempt on his life. 6 months earlier, on May 11, 2020, Ernie Lastig Solomon, his son Carlo, and Jonathan Blicky Thomas, his alleged right-hand man, were ambushed near Club Octopus in Halston, a coastal town in the Western Cape. Gunmen sprayed the group with machine gun fire. Solomon and his son sustained injuries, but Thomas was killed. This attack prompted Solomon to leave his hometown of Halston and relocate to Johannesburg. Despite the move, he met a violent end in a well-coordinated assassination. Solomon was said to lead the Terrible Josters, a formidable gang controlling drug operations in Halston and extending its reach into Delft, Mitchell's Plain, Elsie's River, and beyond. The gang, rumored to have around 10,000 members, rose to dominance under Solomon's leadership between 2003 and 2005, a period marked by his calculated use of violence to cement control. His legacy remains deeply ingrained in the region, where his actions still cast a shadow over the community. Halston, Solomon's hometown, is a small fishing village about 100 kilometers from Cape Town. While its history stretches back to the early 19th century, its fortunes shifted dramatically in the 1990s when the local fishing industry collapsed. The economic void was filled by the illegal abalone trade, drawing Houston into Cape Town's broader criminal networks. Abalone, a prized delicacy in Chinese cuisine, became a lucrative commodity. Gangs, including those Solomon allegedly led, capitalized on this trade, partnering with Chinese crime syndicates. The exchange often involved seafood traded for precursors to illicit drugs. In the 1980s, the gangs used these chemicals to produce mandrax, a popular sedative. Over time, ephedrine, a key ingredient for manufacturing crystal meth, replaced mandrax as the substance of choice. Crystal meth now plagues the Western Cape, devastating communities with its addictive grip.
Fadily's 20 years old. He hasn't slept for 6 days. One of the side effects of tik addiction.
So ek kan jou vermoor het gestaan, het ek vergiet ek het jou vermoor, of ek kan iemand verkrag het ek vergiet. Maar jou mind week over time.
Life along the coast, deeply intertwined with the affiliation to the 28th gang, offers a complex and dangerous existence for those involved in the terrible josters. This gang occupies a strategically advantageous position, controlling territory rich in resources like abalone, which they exchange for drug precursor chemicals. This operation enables them to maintain a robust drug trade, selling both wholesale to other gangs and retail in various neighborhoods. The scale of their operation is such that residents of Halston report that major figures from rival gangs frequently visit the town to procure significant quantities of drugs. The prominence of the terrible josters within the gang hierarchy, particularly under the leadership of Ernie Solomon, appears to have contributed to his assassination in November 2020. His death ignited a storm of speculation and theories, both within gang networks and in the media. Some pointed fingers at external rival gangs, suggesting the murder was retribution for Solomon's alleged role in prior attacks. However, the most persistent explanation revolves around internal strife within the gang itself. Reports suggest a family feud, particularly between Ernie Solomon and his nephew Horatio Voodie Solomon, escalated to a deadly level, resulting in the loss of 2 family members, including Horatio's young daughter, as well as other affiliated gang members. In the rigid hierarchy of the terrible josters, Horatio held a position of power, being one of the 3 senior figures directly beneath Solomon. This family conflict reportedly led to a division within the gang, with alliances forming between Horatio's faction and other groups linked to the 28s. The feud reached its boiling point during a high-profile trial where Horatio and his men faced over 70 charges, including murder, drug trafficking, and illegal arms possession. 2 former gang members who turned state witnesses implicated the terrible josters in a series of gangland assassinations. This courtroom drama exposed the underlying tensions between Ernie and Horatio, as Ernie felt betrayed when members under Horatio's command implicated him in criminal activities. Money and power struggles fueled the animosity between the uncle and nephew. Ernie reportedly spent a fortune on legal defense for Horatio and his men, but demanded repayment, which Horatio refused. When Ernie pressured Horatio to either pay the debt or surrender his properties, Horatio declined and instead forged alliances with other factions of the 28s. This defiance deepened the rift between them, setting off a chain of violent events. On March 15, 2020, while out on bail, Horatio and his 13-year-old daughter Saskia were ambushed at their Durbanville Hills home by unidentified gunmen. While Horatio survived, his daughter tragically lost her life. The attack was widely believed to have been ordered by Ernie as a means of eliminating his nephew. However, the fatal targeting of Saskia instead only exacerbated the feud. In retaliation, just 2 months later, Solomon and his son Carlo were ambushed in Halston. Both were injured and their bodyguard was killed. This incident, seen as vengeance for Saskia's death, further destabilized the gang's structure. Fearing for his life, Solomon fled to Johannesburg, but his efforts to escape the violence proved futile. On November 20th, 2020, he was killed in yet another targeted attack. His murder marked the culmination of a tragic and bloody cycle of retaliation, betrayal, and familial discord within the ranks of the terrible Josters.